Assalamualaikum. Today's episode is a reinforcement of past uploads on moment of force, also known as torque. How do we apply the torque principle in determining two unknown non-parallel forces acting on a rigid body? You'll find it out by sticking around till the end of this video, so just watch and learn. As shown in the figure, a uniform strut with a mass of 5,000 kilograms is being supported by a cable fixed to a horizontal beam. The cable makes an angle 30 degrees from the horizontal, and the strut itself forms an angle of 45 degrees with the horizontal. So in this problem, we want to determine letter A, the tension capital T exerted by the cable, and letter B, the magnitude and direction of the force capital F exerted by the pivot on the lower end of the strut. The strut has a hanging load of mass small m equal to 2,000 kilograms. The first step in our solution is to identify the forces acting on the strut. Alright? The strut being the subject of the problem. So we have the weight of the hanging load denoted by small letter W sub 1, which is equal to the mass, small letter m, times acceleration due to gravity. Or that is W sub 1 equal to 2.0 times 10 to the third kilogram times 9.8 meters per second squared, or W sub 1 equals 1.9 times 10 to the fourth power Newton. Another force is the weight of the strut itself, denoted by W sub 2, right? So W sub 2, of course, is the product of the mass of the strut, capital M, and acceleration due to gravity. That is, W sub 2 equals 5.0 times 10 to the third kilogram times 9.8 meters per second squared, or W sub 2 equals 4.9 times 10 to the fourth power Newton. Alright? So take note, the line of action of W sub 2 passes exactly through the center of gravity or center of mass of the uniform strut. The third force that is acting on the strut, of course, is the tension force exerted by this cable, right? Uh, Specifically on the upper end of the strut, all right? The cable is pulling it along that direction, all right? So, uh, the angle that is formed by the cable with the horizontal beam is 30 degrees, all right? So that means uh, if the cable represents the hypotenuse of an imaginary right triangle, all right, where the horizontal beam becomes the adjacent side of the right triangle, and the distance from the upper end of the strut, right, to the horizontal beam will be the opposite side of the imaginary triangle. And so therefore, um, we can represent here the x and the y components of the tension force capital T. All right. For instance, uh, this arrow representing the y component of the tension T, which we label as T sub y, all right, that corresponds uh, to the opposite side of the angle 30 degrees. All right. So that in terms of the angle 30 degrees and the tension force T, T sub y can just be expressed as the product of the tension force capital T and the sine of the angle 30 degrees. So that is, T sub y is just equal to 0.5, which is the value of sine 30 degrees, right? Multiplied by, of course, the tension capital T. Now, for the x component, all right, represented by this vector arrow directed to the left, all right, we call it the x component of the tension T, labeled as T sub x, all right. So if T sub y is expressed in terms of sine of the angle 30 degrees, it follows that the x component T sub x, okay, can be expressed as the product of the tension capital T and the cosine of the angle 30 degrees. Of course, that is equal to 0.866 times the tension force capital T, right? So take note, the direction of T sub x is to the left, while that of T sub y, of course, is downward. The fourth force that is also acting on the strut is the force F, represented here by this red arrow. All right, this is the force exerted by what we call a pivot on the lower end of the strut, right? And it is directed as shown by this arrow. Take note that this force F forms an angle that is greater than 45 degrees. In other words, the line of action of this force F is not along the uh, length of the strut, all right? The angle that forms with the horizontal is in fact greater than 45 degrees, right? So just like the force tension force of the cable, uh, the force F also has its y and x components, all right? Its y component, as represented by this upward arrow, all right, can be expressed as f sub y equal to the force F times sine of the angle phi. Angle P here is defined as the angle that is formed by the force F with the horizontal. Take note that angle P is in fact greater than 45 degrees. Alright? It is sine, or we use the sine function because this vertical component of F happens to be the opposite, or it corresponds to the opposite side of the imaginary right triangle, with the force F being the hypotenuse, right? And the component Fy is the opposite side of the imaginary triangle, opposite to the angle phi, right? Now, the x component, all right, is directed to the right, and we label it as fx. So for the x component, we express it in terms of the force F and the cosine of the angle phi. Once we know the two components Fy and Fx, we can also determine this angle P simply using the definition of the inverse tangent of the ratio Fy over Fx. Alright? Take note that these two components, the Fy and the Fx components of the force F, are acting on the lower end of the strut, right? With their directions as emphasized. Fy directed upward and Fx directed to the right. Alright, so once again, we emphasize each of the forces acting on the strut, right? Um, the first, these forces is the weight of the hanging load, right? Labeled W sub 1. And the weight of the strut itself, right? Labeled W sub 2. And the force exerted by the cable, or the tension of the cable, represented by capital T, right? Which has two components. The x component labeled as Tx directed to the left, and the y component directed downward. Take note that both Tx and Ty are acting on the upper end of the strut, right? And of course, the force F exerted by the pivot on the lower end of the strut, which also has its x and y components. All right. The x component is directed to the right, and the y component directed upward. So both Fy and Fx are in fact acting on the lower end of the strut. All right. Now, um, we say that the strut is in static equilibrium, which means that the vector sum of its forces, all right, such as the forces acting vertically, all right, must be equal to 0. And we label that here as the summation of Fy. And these are the forces Fy, all right, whose direction is upward. All right. W1, which is the weight of the hanging load directed downward, hence it is minus here. Likewise, the weight of the strut itself, W2, which is also downward, hence minus W2, and the force Ty, or the Y component of the tension force. So, all these four forces, when added vectorially, will have their sum equal to 0. So, if we isolate the force Fy, okay, it becomes the sum of Ty plus W1 plus W sub 2. And substituting the values for W1 and W2, all right, we have Fy is equal to Ty plus 1.9 times 10 to the fourth power Newton plus 4.9 times 10 to the fourth Newton, or simplifying, we have Fy equals Ty can be expressed as uh, the tension T times the sine of the angle 30 degrees. All right? So we replace Ty by T sine 30 degrees. And the sum of W1 and W2, which is 6.8 times 10 to the fourth power Newton. All right? And simplifying further, we have F sub y equals 0.5 times the force capital T plus 6.8 times 10 to the fourth power Newton. Similarly, the summation of all the forces along the horizontal, or summation of Fx, must also be equal to 0, right? And the two forces, or horizontal forces, are Fx and Tx, right? Where Fx is directed to the right and Tx directed to the left. So when these two forces are added vectorially, their sum is also equal to 0. And that would mean that the magnitude of Fx is just equal to the magnitude of Tx, where Tx, okay, can be expressed as the force capital T, or the tension force, times cosine of 30 degrees. That is, Fx, or Tx, okay, has a magnitude equal to 0.866 times the tension force capital T. To be able to compute the force, or the tension force capital T, we're going to apply the torque principle, right? So in using the torque principle, we choose the pivot point, point P, all right, here in this diagram. All right, we consider the pivot point P as the axis of rotation of the strut when all of these forces, okay, are acting on the strut at the same time. We say that uh, about point P, the sum of the torques that can cause the strut to rotate clockwise, all right, must be equal to the sum of the torques that can cause the strut to rotate counterclockwise. All right. And the first torque that can cause the strut to rotate clockwise is that of weight W sub 1, right? In other words, the weight of the hanging load, okay, can cause a torque we label here as torque number 1, right? Uh, with respect to the chosen axis of rotation, the tendency for this weight W1 is to make the strut rotate clockwise, right? If this is the axis, so the force W1, okay, has the tendency to make the strut rotate clockwise about this point P, right? So, if you multiply the magnitude of the weight W1 by its moment arm denoted by d sub 1, right, which can be expressed as the length of the strut, capital L, multiplied by cosine of the angle 45 degrees, right? So the weight W sub 1 is 1.9 times 10 to the 4th power Newton. When we multiply it by the moment arm d1, all right, which is L cosine 45 degrees, then we are defining torque number 1, all right? D sub 1, or moment arm d1, all right, is the distance from the line of action of the weight W sub 1, right? So this is the line of action of W sub 1. How far it is from the axis of rotation at point P, all right? That is what we mean by the moment arm labeled as d sub 1, right? So in terms of the length of the strut, capital L, we can express d1 as the product of the length L, okay, and the cosine of the angle 45 degrees, right? So, multiplying the weight 1.9 times 10 to the 4th power Newton and the value of cosine 45 degrees, we will get this expression for torque number 1, all right, equal to 1.3 times 10 to the 4th Newton times the length of the strut, capital L, all right? So this is the first torque that can cause the strut to rotate clockwise, right, about the chosen axis of rotation, which is at pivot point P. The second torque that can cause clockwise rotation of the strut is uh, the torque due to the weight W sub 2, or the weight of the strut itself, right? That is 4.9 times 10 to the 4th power Newton. That's the weight of the strut. And its corresponding moment arm denoted by d sub 2, right? So in our diagram, the line of action of the weight of the strut, which passes through its center of gravity exactly at the midpoint of the length of the strut, all right, there it is. So its line of action that happens to be a distance equal to d sub 2, right? Where d sub 2 is the perpendicular distance from the line of action of w sub 2 to the axis of rotation. And that happens to be 0.5 times the length of the strut, all right? Since the center of gravity through which the line of action of W2 is exactly at half the length, that's why we are using 0.5 times the length of the strut and then multiplying it by cosine 45 degrees. That is, torque number 2 can be expressed as 1.7 times 10 to the 4th power Newton multiplied by the length capital L. The third torque that produces or that causes the strut to have a clockwise torque, all right, is due to the force Ty, the vertical component of the tension force T, right? So in the diagram, the line of action of Ty, right, um, happens to be the opposite side, right, of the angle 45 degrees, with the length of the strut uh, forming the hypotenuse of the imaginary right triangle. So the moment arm d sub 3, all right, is just the same as the moment arm that we use for torque number 1, all right, equal to the length L times the cosine of 45 degrees, all right. So since Ty has already been expressed as 0.5 times the tension force capital T, multiplying it by L cosine 45 degrees, we get torque number 3 equal to 0.36 times the tension T and the length of the strut capital L. Now, the only torque that can cause the strut to rotate counterclockwise, which we label here as torque number 4, is due to the force Tx, or the x component of the tension T. All right? So in the diagram, Tx, or the line of action of Tx, okay, has a corresponding moment arm equal to the distance from point P. That vertical distance from point P, or the axis of rotation, to the line of action of Tx is the moment arm, all right, denoted by d sub 4. All right? And that happens to be the opposite side of the imaginary triangle opposite to the angle 45 degrees. That is why d4 is also expressed as L sine 45 degrees. So when multiplied to the magnitude of Tx, which is 0.866 times the tension T, all right, we get the expression for the torque T4 equal to 0.61 times the tension force capital T and the length capital L. This is the only torque that can cause the strut to have a counterclockwise torque. All right. Incidentally, the two forces Fy and Fx do not produce any torque about point P. The fact that both Fy and Fx, all right, their line of actions exactly pass through the axis of rotation point P. So there is no lever arm that can be defined, which means that they do not have any torque about the axis of rotation chosen at point P. Getting the vector sum of all the torques that can cause clockwise rotation of the strut, we have summation of uh, the torques, okay, for clockwise rotation equals 1.3 times 10 to the fourth Newton times the length L plus 1.7 times 10 to the fourth Newton times the length L plus 0.36 times the tension force T and the length L, right? So simplifying, we get 3.0 times 10 to the fourth times the length L plus 0.36 times the tension force T and times the length L, right? And if you're going to equate the torques for the clockwise and the counterclockwise rotations, we will get, of course, this is about the chosen axis of rotation at point P, all right? So 0.36 times the tension force T plus 3.0 times 10 to the fourth, all right, uh, equated to 0.61 times the tension force T, all right. So, in this uh, equation, okay, we already have canceled out the length of the strut capital L, all right. So we are only left with the variable capital T. So when we further simplify, we come up with the magnitude of the force tension capital T equal to 1.2 times 10 to the fifth power Newton. Now that we know the magnitude of the force tension capital T, which is equal to 1.2 times 10 to the fifth power Newton, we can now proceed in computing the magnitude of the force F. All right. First, we start with its x component. All right. So Fx has the same magnitude as Tx, where Tx, okay, is expressed as 0.866 times the tension T. So substituting and multiplying it by 0.866, we get the magnitude of the force Fx equal to 1.0 times 10 to the fifth power Newton. All right? So this Fx, as shown in the diagram, is directed to the right. Now, for the y component, Fy, all right? So the magnitude of the force Fy is equal to 0.5 times the computed value for the tension T, 1.2 times 10 to the fifth power Newton, plus uh, the sum of the two weights, W1 and W2, or 6.8 times 10 to the fourth power Newton. Simplifying, we have the magnitude of the force Fy equal to 1.3 times 10 to the 5th power Newton. Alright? So now, we can apply the Pythagorean formula to determine the magnitude of the force F. Alright? So, the square of the force F is just equal to the sum of the squares of Fy and Fx. Alright? So, that is F squared equals 1.3 times 10 to the 5th power Newton, that's to be squared, plus 1.0 times 10 to the 5th power Newton, that's also to be squared. So when you do our math, we finally get the magnitude of the force F equal to 1.6 times 10 to the 5th power Newton. Alright? And to determine the direction of this force F, alright, we find the angle that we have defined earlier, and that is angle phi. That is the angle formed by the force F with the horizontal. Since we already know what is Fy and Fx, we can now use the definition of the inverse of the tangent Fy over Fx, where Fy over Fx, alright, is simply equal to 1.3. So with the help of your scientific calculator, we find that the angle P is equal to 52 degrees. Hence, the final answer for the force F is that it has a magnitude of 1.6 times 10 to the 5th power Newton, and it is directed 52 degrees above the positive x-axis. So as predicted earlier, alright, the value of the angle P is greater than 45 degrees. So that's it. So we're done. Till the next episode, mabuhay, mashallah. Thank you very much for watching. Please follow me in my FB page, and please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel.